Hi guys. Today I'm going to explain some things that you need to know before conjugation in Spanish, before you just start conjugating. I'm also going to explain what conjugation is. So the first thing you need to know are verbs, and I think if you probably know what a verb is. But the main thing I want you to know is what an infinitive is. So an example of an infinitive in English is to run. So the main thing you need to notice about that is that there's no tense, as in past, present, or future. You don't know when it's happening. Also, there's no sense of a performer, as in like me, you, them, we, Germany, whatever. In Spanish, an example of an infinitive is correr, which also means to run. So in Spanish, there's an infinitive classification, and it depends on the ending of the infinitive. There are three types: er, ar, and ir verbs. Spanish infinitives always have this. It has a stem. It has an E, A, or I, and then it always has an R. So an example is correr, like we saw before. Cor was the stem, C-O-R-R. E was one of these three letters, like E, A, or I. R was the standard R in it. So that's an infinitive. And there's lots of more verbs, infinitives. That's just one example, but they're always going to have one of those three. I don't know an example where an infinitive doesn't have E, A, or I. So the next thing I want you to know are what personal pronouns are. They're the performers, you could say. Like I, we, remember. So here's some Spanish personal pronouns. Yo is I. Now one thing you need to note is that some people in the Spanish language pronounce it yo. I've adopted a Mexican Spanish accent, so that's why I say yo. But it's just a matter of personal preference. What depends on how you say it. But there is a specific type of pronunciation. I'm not going to go into pronunciation. That's something for you to do on your own. But, yeah. So, tú is you. And the main thing I want you to notice on that is that there's an accent on the you. If you do not include the accent, it means something completely different. Usted. Now, usted is kind of weird. We don't really have something like it in English. But usted is also you. But it's the formal version of you. And I'm going to explain that a little bit later in a video about personal pronouns. But, you just know what usted means. El means he. And again, notice the accent. Ella means her. Nosotros means we. And there's also nosotras, which is like nosotros means we, as in a group of males, like John and I. I'm a guy, so John and I, we're both a group of males. Or it could be Lisa and I. Lisa is a woman, and I'm a man. But it can be like nosotros is a man, and a man, like a group of men, and a man and a woman, a group of men and women. But nosotras is just a group of plain women. So if I was a woman, I would use nosotras. Ustedes, ustedes is a little bit more complicated because I'm just going to tell you what it means. I'm going to explain a little bit about why we don't have a specific word for y'all. But ustedes means y'all. It's technically formal y'all, but in the Spanish that I'm going to teach you, there is no word for y'all informally. Ellos means they, as in a group of guys and, girls. Ellas means just girls, they. So by now you're probably wondering what conjugating is. And if you saw what an infinitive was, which is no tense and a no sense of performer, conjugating is adding a time, or a tense, and a performer to the verb. So here's what I like to call the conjugation chart, and here's an English version. So on the left side we see first, second, and third, and this describes the person. If you don't know what I mean by that, you should probably look it up, because it's gonna be a little bit confusing if you don't understand that. On the top, it's a singular and plural. So it's kind of like a chart, it helps you organize your thoughts when you're conjugating. So I put the personal pronouns in front, and then I put, like verb. That's when the verb's gonna be. But the main thing that's gonna be the same every time is the personal pronoun. So the first person. First person means yourself, which would be, I, or it could be we. So singular, on the singular it's I, it's just I, one person. But for plural we have we. And again, for second person, that's, you're talking to someone. And that could be you, or it could be y'all. You, as in the singular, just one person, and y'all is a group of people. And third, it could be you're talking to someone who, as if they're not present. Well, you're talking to someone who isn't present, actually. But, he, she, and it. That's the three things that, as if they're not present, he is fun, that's like, he's not there, but you're talking about him. And then for plural, we have they. So this is the English conjugation chart. The Spanish conjugation chart is a little bit different. For first person singular, we have yo, and that makes sense. Yo means I. First person plural, no, we have nosotros, and that also makes sense. Nosotros means we. Second person singular, second person is where it starts to get a little bit weird. For second person singular, we have tú, which means you, and that makes sense. But we don't have a second person plural in Latin American Spanish. There is in Spain, there is a second person plural. It's vosotros, but I'm not going to use it. And there are one or two countries in Latin America that do use vosotros, but I'm not going to go into that. Third person singular. Él, ella, y usted. Now, in Spanish, it is a little bit of a weird, it's different. Like, they don't use the pronoun for it in verb conjugation. Forget about it when you're conjugating. Just, there is a pronoun for it, but it's a little bit different. And this should make sense. Él means he, ella means she, but usted, that's something that won't make sense to you. Why would you formal be in the third person? Well, I think the way I think about this is that they speak to someone with so much respect that they're speaking to them as if they're not there. So usted and ustedes, third person plural, they're always going to be in the third person. You're never going to speak to someone formally in the second person. And third person plural, we have ellos, ellas, y ustedes. And that's just, making them plural. So today I've taught you a little bit of things about what you need to know before conjugating, and just a little bit about conjugation, and sort of an introduction. I hope you like this video. Please comment on it, and, if you don't have time to comment, just like or dislike it. So, once I get 100 views, or just some constructive criticism, I'll either redo the video, or I'll start making a new